Sounds great.
Coming up, authorities investigate another oil spill on Grand Bahama. The DNA leader claims this month's gambling referendum is illegal as thousands prepare to vote in tomorrow's advanced poll. Grand Bahama records its first murder for the year, plus Marathon Bahamas a running success. Good Sunday evening. I'm Vonique Toot, and NB12, the weekend edition, starts right now. Topping news this evening, hundreds of gallons of oil gushed into waters off Grand Bahama this morning after the shipping vessel Butterfly attempted to fuel up from an offshore Borco fuel barge. Owner of Overseas Marine Group Ray Darville tells NB12 he is not certain of the circumstances surrounding the incident, but saw the oil spill firsthand as his team was the only one on the scene well into the afternoon. We understand the spill began sometime around 6 a.m. We spoke with Darville shortly after 12 when he explained the magnitude of the situation, revealing that hundreds of gallons of oil had already made its way to the shore near 8 Mile Rock.
I'm looking at 20 gallons here. I'm looking at 200-300 gallons there. I'm looking at another 200 gallons there. The ferry just went through another 200 gallons. There's another to the east of me. There's got to be 500 gallons, and Daniel said the worst part is over there by 8 Mile Rock on the beach.
Wow.
And nobody's, you get a couple of small boats and you put the sausage boom in there. I got 20 freaking, packs of sausage boom in my trailer, but I need more boats. I need more coordination.
Darville says the oil may have been a mixed fuel. He observed that as it appeared to be heavier than diesel and lighter than bunker fuel. Overseas Marine Group deployed some booms and tried to capture some of the oil. However, Darville says another boat came along and used an oil dispersant, which only served to spread the oil over a wider area. He explained that dispersants should not be used in shallow water. Darville made it clear that his company was not contracted to clean up this oil spill, but was doing so free of charge, and no one had responded to the disaster some 6 hours after the spill began. This is the second oil spill near Grand Bahama in under 2 months. In early December, a heavy crude oil spill coated the ocean about 12 miles off Grand Bahama after a Mediterranean shipping company container vessel reported a slow leak. As thousands of Bahamians prepare to vote in the controversial gambling referendum, leader of the Democratic National Alliance and attorney Bravo McCartney is calling on government to postpone the poll once again. He insists it is illegal because the legal framework is not in place. McCartney isn't the only person to make this claim in recent days. Radio talk show host and former attorney Ortland Bodie filed a writ in the Supreme Court seeking to stop the January 28th poll. McCartney says if nothing happens over the next week, he won't be voting.
The government is really asking the Bahamian people to vote on an illegality. That cannot be right. And that is very, very concerning.
The DNA leader asserts that the gambling referendum slated for January 28th is illegal and not really a referendum. McCartney, who is an attorney of 22 years, says the constitutional referendum amendment bill that was passed in Parliament last year will enable government to hold referenda that will not change the Constitution. However, he believes the upcoming poll could still face a legal challenge because the legal framework is still not in place.
I think the wording is wrong regarding the web shops. It should be whether or not they should be legal, regulated, and taxed. Because you don't have to go through a referendum for regulation and taxation. That's the government's job, and they should do that. But for completeness' sake, I think they can add regulate and tax, but the initial and fundamental part of that question should have been legalization. And quite frankly, if it were to be a proper referendum, it ought to have outlined how the web shops would be legalized.
Essentially, he says, Bahamians are participating in an opinion poll.
If you look at the essence, what a referendum is, it is the people voting on a subsisting piece of legislation or a subsisting piece of law or a proposed legislation. That is really the legal definition of a referendum. We don't have neither.
McCartney believes the government's many missteps in the lead-up to the referendum are the result of its failure to consult the opposition. The DNA leader says a national lottery and web shops could be a huge industry for the Bahamas. However, he won't be voting if nothing happens between now and January 28th.
I would certainly ask them to look at this properly. Do not put the Bahamian people in a position where they are participating in an illegal activity by going to this opinion poll, because it's not a referendum. It has no legal effect. On the 28th of January, if it's a yes vote, nothing is going to change. If it's a no vote, nothing is going to change. And legally, it doesn't have to. It's a mammoth waste of time.
Attorney General Alison Maynard Gibson claims criticism surrounding this month's referendum is misconceived, insisting that the process by which the poll will be held and the legislation that defines it are valid and subsisting. Maynard Gibson said in a statement the word regulation implicitly encompasses legalization, as government cannot regulate an unlawful activity. Therefore, she says, a yes vote covers legalization. The AG assures voters that the two referendum questions have been framed as precisely as possible. Meantime, more than 6,500 people are expected to vote in tomorrow's advance poll for the gambling referendum. Acting Parliamentary Commissioner Sherlyn Hall told NB12 6,519 applications to vote early were accepted. Here's the breakdown of those early voters.
The breakdown comprised of 1,076 Defense Force officers, 2,722 police officers, 65 overseas persons, and 2,656 special voters, persons who would be out of the constituency on referendum day, who have completed the Form K, as well as poll workers like my staff and other who would be manning the polling stations.
Hall says there are currently 173,591 names on the voter register. About 1,000 people have registered since the 2012 general election. More than 55% of those voters are women. The acting parliamentary commissioner says a few overseas voters submitted applications but later withdrew them.
Well, a few persons who completed the Form J, say overseas, the students. I think there was one in Washington and there's one in Ottawa. And as a result of the difficulty perhaps getting to the poll, they have asked that their application be withdrawn. So that's overseas. But here, a few persons who would be out of their constituencies on referendum day, who will be in New Providence, we will accommodate them to vote at the Kendall Isaac Gym.
Voters will be asked to answer two questions. Do you support the regulation and taxation of web shops? And do you support the establishment of a national lottery? Hall says his staff has checked the register and counterfoils to ensure they match. He says they have also packed ballot boxes and shipped materials to the Family Islands. And if you're voting in the gambling referendum, here's what the ballot will look like.
We have prepared a sample ballot, like so, and encourage each voter to kindly mark one X per question, either for a yes or a no, and one X for a question two, either a yes or a no. I'm holding in my hand a sample ballot, and a voter ought not to or should not vote for a yes or no for question one, for both questions, or yes or no for question two. That would be a spoiled and rejected ballot. So
More than 1,000 runners from nearly 20 countries, including Iceland, Russia, Canada, and Germany, turned out on Junkanoo Beach at the crack of dawn for Sunshine Insurance Marathon Bahamas. The big event is in its 4th year. Florida native Jonathan Volpe was the first half-marathon runner to cross the finish line. Meantime, Mackie Williams was the first Bahamian to complete the half-marathon run, which was 13 miles.
I have done a full before. I do enjoy the half. I mean, it's very challenging to run that fast, and it beats you up, but it doesn't, really, put a damper on everything. I can walk the next day.
Yeah. The experience was good. It was more like of a workout, so. Yeah. And also because there was no headwind going to and fro, so it was, somewhat easy.
Businessman Franklin Wilson says this year they teamed up with the Ministry of Education to launch a program called Students Run Bahamas.
So we have, I think it's 16 or 17, I don't know quite how many, student groups in the relay.
Wow.
Scotiabank came on board and is sponsoring them as a subset of the relay. I met the team yesterday from C.H. Reeves. These kids are 12 to 14 years of age. 12 to 14 years of age. Now you can imagine at that age you get into the discipline of distance running. Yeah. Look what you're learning in terms of character building.
Wilson expects the number of students participating to grow significantly next year. Still to come, a Grand Bahama man killed at his home last evening. We've got the details of that story and a whole lot more after this break.